speed and time constraints. If I'm getting the quality, it depends on the research. I think actually that's getting quite a bit better. With video ethnography, mobile ethnography, all these tools that we have, I actually feel collecting the data, the speed is great. Analyzing the data is now more of the challenge. That's where I feel things are slower because I have so much more data to look at. Do I want to have agencies talking to each other? Sometimes there are policies against that, a company policy about, well, you need to be careful. We don't want them talking about cost or price or things like that. On the other hand, I have found a lot of my agencies are open to that. In fact, they may bring another agency to me. And I really respect that. That adds a lot of value. So CommuniSpace, now known as C-Space, has done that repeatedly. Like, we know you're interested in doing something like this. We have found a tool that does it. You're free to use them on your own, or you can use them with your community. We'll just pass through the cost. Well, that helps you become a consultant. Now you're just not, hey, here's my video group, or here's my community group, or here's my DIY survey group. This is an agency that is now consulting with me that is truly listening. It also, I like that handshake that they make of introducing another agency to me because I feel they have vetted them. It's sometimes a little awkward when I'm trying to piece that together, but I'm seeing more and more openness actually in the marketplace than I did even 3 years ago. They can help me when I'm designing the study. I think that's actually the biggest gap. As a researcher, I'm always going to want to put 20 pounds in a 5-pound bag, and I think they should tell me, why don't you put in 4 pounds, because you're never going to have time to look through all of that, or they can design it to fit tools that they have. Let us help you at least get halfway there. We'll get through 10 of the pounds for you. So do I think traditional methods still have a place? I have a really good friend in improv, and she's taught me the trick of yes and. That too often we do or no, and yes, there are traditional methods and new methods, and they work together. And traditional methods aren't as static as people believe they are. They're actually very fluid if it's a good agency. If you're not moving and changing even within a traditional method, you might not survive, so you have to be fluid. So I agree. I still like talking one-on-one to consumers. I'm a friendly person. I'm not the person you probably want to sit next to on the plane, although I will respect you if you just want to read your book. But I will talk to you. People love to talk about Hallmark cards, and I will ask you to tell me your story about Hallmark cards or the Hallmark Channel or Crayola. And I will listen, and I am doing research, and I will tell you I am doing research. And that's a very traditional method, the conversation, and that will never go away.
We're living in a world where speed is everything. Decisions are being made faster, so the information has to come faster. But just because information comes faster does not mean the quality has to deteriorate. I mean, today you can get information just by typing a phrase in a search engine instantly. There's absolutely no reason we should not do that with any research data that we have. So no, I don't believe that just because you do things faster, it comes at the expense of quality. If there's good communication and you understand, what you're trying to accomplish, and you have access to data and you're able to synthesize it and make sense of it, the story will emerge. And storytelling is not forcing a story; it's letting the story emerge and telling itself in a sense. If you mean by traditional methods is going out and getting information directly from customers, absolutely, because there's always going to be a role for customers providing input directly. So yes, that'll always have a role. Now maybe the way we do it, the speed at which we do it, maybe some of the other stuff around it may change, but the fact that we will continue to get information from customers, that'll continue.
The fundamentals are always going to be really important. So understanding how you complement what we've always done with new techniques is important. It's the evolution of the industry. But more importantly, you really have to think about what makes sense for the business question you're trying to answer. And to eliminate something just because it's been done for a long time wouldn't really be the best way to operate. You just know that you have more options, and then you look at those options and figure out what makes sense for that business question. It goes back to having a list of options that can meet the needs of a specific situation. So there's not one thing that I favor, but more importantly, what are the methods that are going to make sense for the question that I have, the budget that I have, and the time frame I have to answer it. And so I love focus groups, but if what I need to do doesn't require a focus group, it doesn't matter that I like focus groups. It really matters that I think about what the business question is, what's the outcome, what are the parameters that I have to work through budget-wise. To better serve me would be really to think about how we can influence our key stakeholders, which means it's not just about how do we come back with interesting knowledge, but how do we understand, just like how we understand consumers and shoppers, how do we understand what makes marketers tick, and what do we need to do? How do we need to present things in a way that actually will change their behavior and make them value the perspective that we're sharing because they know that it's impactful and will positively impact their business. A story is meaningless if you don't have like a proper introduction, if you don't have a climax, and you don't have an arc to the story. Who reads a story that doesn't end? And if you just share a lot of information and haven't given any type of conclusion around what you want people to do, it's meaningless. I think story is important. Having a narrative is important, but telling people what you think they should go do is the most important. People don't want to just hear us wax on about different facts and figures about something. They want us to tell them what to do and give them our recommendation based on the knowledge we have from the research, not just to hear a laundry list of all the research we did.
There are new methodologies now where we can speed things up and not sacrifice quality, but overall, the longer we have, the better and different type of response we can get into a survey. And also, you get the cheaper, quicker, faster model, and you can get all three if you have enough time. I think working together and understanding each company's strengths and goals of the agenda helps out a lot. I think understanding if a company's going to go after the same population over and over again, can we cheat ahead of time and define that population so when they need to access it again, we're almost picking off like a Chinese menu where we get number 2s, number 3s, number 5s, and get really great data. I think the more we understand their objective directly and working with them, doing pre-work, helps us a lot getting jobs done in field and getting them happier, cleaner data sets to make more informed decisions. A lot of times we get specs, but we don't know the final agenda sometimes. The more we know up front, the better it comes out at the end.
Actually, we love time and resource constraints. We actually think they're the way that you can get to innovation. So if you think about the way most startups work, they're naturally always constrained for resources and time, and it forces them to innovate. So I would actually argue that we need to be even more constrained than we are now to really force us to come up with new business models for the industry. I think that there are hallmarks of traditional methods, the hallmarks of understanding the consumer's story and building empathy for what a consumer wants and understanding what a consumer needs will always have a place. That will always have a place, but how we get there has to change because the market's changed, consumers have changed, and we don't have time to do traditional focus groups and surveys and things like that anymore. I think storytelling is certainly a key part of any good sell-in of market research and helping a client to understand how best to act, helping that client to then help their internal clients to act on research. Stories are always very compelling. So storytelling will continue to have a place, but I think you can't get to the story unless you have a very robust picture of things. And when you're just doing a traditional survey, it's very difficult to get a story out of that. You got to take a more method agnostic approach to understanding the whole picture.
Traditional techniques do have a future in market research. What they need to do is incorporate technologies and innovative ways of doing the traditional techniques. And I think by doing that, the data across generations will remain intact because you still have the techniques that have been tried and true. But it gives a new spin on how to handle those techniques. It doesn't really sacrifice quality. Sometimes I see a sacrifice of depth. So the quality on the data that's collected and the quality on the data that's reported on is still fantastic. It's just a matter of getting to that maybe that second answer. And the second answer to the question might be the correct answer, whereas the first answer is a bit more superficial. The thing that clients can do to help us serve them better is understand what they're looking for. The more concise the request is to us, or even the conversation. Sometimes a conversation about what they're looking for, rather than a statement, will allow them to get more exactly what they're looking for, because sometimes the statement is too confining, whereas a conversation has some back and forth and allows for some creativity around figuring out not only how to get what they're looking for, but exactly what they are looking for.
Traditional methods still reach the middle. It's just the curve is flattening and people are more and more like spreading out into different groups that we don't readily identify. So if you don't try something new, you're going to miss those people and you're going to miss an increasingly large percent of your market. I think right now we're in a time where innovation is truly something that you have to explore. If you stick to the same old, you're going to get the same old.
I think that there's ways that you can supplement and overlay, some of the traditional methods also with all of the big data and synthesis of all of those kind of methods. So I think that they can play a part together, and I don't think that you necessarily have to make a call on like never or always of any of it. Storytelling is the basis of all of how we even learn, right? So if you're storytelling, then you're doing something right. You need to be going down that path of thinking about the narrative and thinking about how people go down an emotional journey with you. I look at it from the trend side at Trend Hunter, thinking about how brands and agencies need to be building stories. I think they really need to be engaging their users, their consumers, in helping to create the narrative and in help guiding it. And you can do that a lot in interacting with your audience and helping them so that they feel invested in the narrative and in the story behind different parts of your brand as well. So, that'd be my trend sort of angle on the whole storytelling. At Trend Hunter, a lot of what we do is custom. So we serve custom trend reports, and in the trend space, the open innovation is crucial to understanding what we are able to provide. So part of what we try to do, first of all, is provide thought leadership to help educate them on these different ways about thinking about innovatively outside of the box, so to speak. And so I think that's what, if you're asking me honestly, what they can do is sort of start to embrace that and think about that in terms of looking outside of the box and welcoming sources from different places, because then that's how you can take information like what you get from Trend Hunter on the front end and really think about some cool applications for your world.